Welcome to this installment of Moments with Mike. In our last time together, we introduced a new mental health issue, a concern that we have for the stress that people are experiencing in this day in which we live. We talked a little bit about what stress is, its both positive and negative effect. And we mentioned that stress can be both acute, very direct, very dynamic, but for a shorter duration of time, characterized by a fight or flight syndrome, and chronic, not as intense, and perhaps just not as aware as we should be that something is going on around us that needs our attention. But we know something's off. Today, I want to talk about the three major stressors that people deal with in their life. The first would be life situations. The second would be the personalities that dot our life. And the third one is about perception. In a study that was done many years ago and has now become very much a part of the psychological community as it relates to a measurement of stress, we talked about the many different life stressors that come into our path. And in this study that was done, it was determined that there were 10 different major events that people meet with, are challenged by, and have to respond to, hopefully in a very positive way. The first of those was the death of a spouse. It is a traumatic and a dramatic event. Also, we see the death of a family member and divorce and separation, a job layoff or being fired from a job, a difficult pregnancy and the birth that would follow that, the death of a friend or retirement, something that clearly I am giving attention to at this season in my life, marital reconciliation and changing of job, or a child leaving home. Those are all different life stressors that produce within us a physiological, emotional, or mental response. The second would be the personality types that dot the landscape of our life. Many years ago, I read a book by a long-distance mentor of mine, and in that book, he said that there are really three kinds of people in the world. You have VIPs, very influential people, or very impactful people. We love to fill up our lives with folks like that. But he said more often than not, we have VDP people or VNP people, very draining people or very needy people. I'm sure that you could probably stop for a moment and make a list of each of those, and you might find a few more VNP or VDP people than the very impactful, influential people of your life. In other words, the external stressor of our life might be the person who lives next door. It might be the person in the cubicle next to us at our workplace. It might be the person that always seems to have a need, doesn't ever seem to be in a place where they can move ahead with life without it feeling challenging to them. And then finally, there are those perceptions that people have that bring them to places of stress. They worry about failure, and they worry about their perfectionistic tendencies. And I would remind you that perception for most people is their reality. And for you and I, we might look at it and try to understand the backstory and try to understand why their response to it is as dramatic and intense as it really is. But for them, what they see and what they process is not the same thing that we see and what we process. And so stress can come from many different places. Very difficult people, difficult situations of change and adjustment that come into our life, or the way in which we process that goes around us. In our next episode, we'll talk about the symptoms that accompany stress. Thanks again for tuning in. Hope that you're finding this helpful. I look forward to talking to you again soon. God bless.